Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Yes, okay, so the photo, I don't know how you got it. In this photo, we've got something really great happening. When I know you already let the cat out of the bag, that this photo was made in Hong Kong. It could look like it was from the street, like you just sort of happened by, but on the other hand, it's a photo of this guy who looks in his 40s, I guess, late 40s-ish. He's eating his lunch. He's got a little styrofoam pad. He's got the chopsticks. He's eating. Looks like he's an accountant because he's got the ledger books all around him. It's super packed, like office supplies. He's lost in this desk. Lots of grays, lots of boxes, a double A. I mean, boxes for just plain paper that are obviously filled with stuff. Or maybe those are filing boxes. He's got a laptop in front of his face that's open. The expression is he's not quite chewing his food, but he's kind of in the middle of his lunch. Behind him are all these papers, like calendars and all this. I mean, it's super full-on busy and rich, and the tone is really nice. Okay, so walk us through this. Okay. Alex Macro.
I have to go back a little bit.
Yes.
The first picture, when I took that picture, I had my Canon camera, which I'd come to Hong Kong with, which I'd used professionally for ages, forever. And every time I tried to take a picture, everyone would go, no.
Okay.
And it was stressing me out that I had this camera that and I couldn't figure out why, because everybody's got a camera, everybody's taking pictures. So I had this idea that I'd like a smaller camera. So I went out. Fuji just released their latest X100V. Mm-hmm. Great little street photography camera, got great reviews. I literally was one of the first people to get hold of one. And I took it out and not one person noticed me.
Okay.
I was just another dumb guilo.
Yeah.
Lost.
Right.
And that's where the title for this project then came. So I became a ghostly man.
Okay.
Which is the guilo. So
right.
I'm doing a guilo project, but it's actually the camera that made me the ghost.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden I had this superpower and I could go around places and nobody cared.
Right.
Which was the first time in Hong Kong that had been the case.
Mm-hmm.
And this picture is actually the Wan Chai Computer Center.
Mm-hmm.
That is the security manager, whatever, who is underneath the stairwell. And I just walked by. His door was open. Mm-hmm. I walked by. I went, I set the camera. I took 2 steps back. I got 2 pictures. Yeah. And then I got... and I just... in my limited Cantonese, big wave of hand and walked off, slightly trembling, going, God, I hope it worked.
Yeah.
And then the reason I've put this picture in is it's one of the only ones in my whole series that I've done where the person is looking to camera. Mm-hmm. And it nearly won. It was nominated at the Association of Photography Awards, which are a pretty big deal.
Nice.
Didn't win, but it was there. And so, yeah, it was validation of the fact that my project had legs, mm-hmm. and that I was effectively doing the right thing.
Right.
And so this kind of for me was that knowledge that I'd found my mojo, I'd kind of got it, and I was now running with it.
Yeah. So one of the great things about the light, about the composition, about everything, like I sort of described, like there's a lot of white, and there's a lot of gray, and there's a lot of black, and what's also kind of nice, it's punctuated with these, like the red edge of the ledger books or whatever, maybe not ledger, just maybe the log books.
He's essentially framed, isn't he?
Yeah, it's really, it's good. And he's quite almost, I could see why, I think a photographer looking at this would really appreciate this. It's because it really communicates your aesthetic and your eye and the sense of, because it's the warmth of his skin versus his clothing. It's kind of like, and it's an honest clearly, like, no, you could never stage this kind of.
No.
Well, maybe you couldn't in a movie, but not really.
Yeah, and also it's something that, you know, when you come to Hong Kong, you notice things, and one of the things that I noticed was that people eat at their desk.
Yeah.
That's just really common.
Yeah.
And you go at lunchtime to go and buy something, and someone will be munching on their lunch.
Yeah. The chicken feet. Yeah.
The chicken feet, yeah, whatever. And you're trying to ask, do you have any? And so when I took this picture and I showed it to some local people, everybody relates to it.
Yeah.
So Westerners relate to it in one way, locals react in a different way, and everybody goes like, "Oh, that's so Hong Kong."
Yep.
If you've lived here, then you know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, because it has to be asked, when did you hold the camera and think this is a way? Because, so for example, when I was in Canada a year or two ago, and speaking of mental health, I was going through some very difficult times, and one person I'd spoken to, he was saying like, because I think you kind of fall into the place of being an HSP, a highly sensitive person. Okay, I don't think it's a very or necessarily a technical term. It's more like this, you know, qualitative sort of like, this is kind of what you're like. HSPs go around life noticing a lot, you know. So like you're taking in stuff and you process a lot, you talk a lot, you think a lot, you're taking in lots and lots of sense and sensation and data and impressions, and listening to how you speak in terms of how you make sense of the world is you fall within that HSP kind of category of person. So let's go back to when your brain is young and fresh in its skull, and you're like a 12-year-old or whatever it is, or a 13-year-old, and you get a camera. Is that when you got your camera? Like, when did your brain connect to the machine of a camera and think, wait a second, this is solving a need?
I know exactly the moment.
Okay. Well, I'd hope so.
It was the day my brother came home from hospital. Newborn baby, so I was 7.
Oh, okay.
And we stood around the crib. We took a family picture, and I asked whether I could take a picture. I had 2 uncles. I'm half French. Both my uncles were very keen photographers. So cameras were always around and stuff, but that was always what kind of quirky uncles did and stuff like that. I really wanted to take a picture. And so I was holding my brother up with my right hand in the crib, and Mum, I presume it was Mum, took a picture. I dropped a kid, went for the camera. Baby starts crying. Oh. I grab the camera. I'm no longer able to take a picture.
Right.
Like, fucking annoying kid. and I think that was the moment that I knew it was something important, interesting, and something I wanted to do. Something I really wanted a camera, and I didn't get a camera. It was the first proper camera I had was given to me by my uncle Bruno, and I can't remember what it was, a little Rolly, I think, a little small little 35mm, and it was really small. And I loved the fact that it was small because nobody noticed, you know, it's a little camera. And actually that has set the tone for everything in my life. When I went to art school, I bought an MG Super Pentax, I think. Mm-hmm. The reason I got it's probably the smallest SLR camera that was around at the time. Yeah. While everybody else was trying to get the biggest Nikon that money could buy. I didn't want that. I didn't want people to know that I was taking their pictures in a way. Right. So I guess I was always doing this. Right. I guess I was always the ghostly man. Art school. Where? So I grew up in Newcastle. I went to Sunderland Poly to do Art Foundation, where I think the second module we did was photography. We had to buy a camera. That's when I got the MG Super, and I never left my hand. Okay. It just became another limb. Literally and then from there I went to Maidstone, which was 356 miles from my home, which was very specific and deliberate because my parents were falling apart and blah, 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 and I wanted to get away. And I just took pictures of everything. I was just constantly shooting. Right. Okay. When was this photo made? 2019.
Okay, so
Is that right? It must have been about then.
kicking in close to the start of the pandemic? Is that right? No, 2020. Right?
So when I arrived, it took me a while to kind of kick this project off. Like the first 6 months, I had no idea what I was doing in Hong Kong. I had no idea how to take pictures in Hong Kong. So it was a slightly slow process. That was 2017. So 18, I kind of started to figure out what it was about. Protests kind of kicked off.
Right.
So clients stopped employing people like photographers because everyone was kind of scared.
Yeah.
So I had the newly found work that I had vanished, and so I kind of kept this going just to kind of keep doing things. And then of course the pandemic happened, and that was the end of not getting any work for everyone.
Yeah.
So this kind of became my job of I was doing other things, but in between. So I'd always say that when I had to go somewhere or do something, I would go with my camera.
Right. So I got here in Hong Kong in 2003, and after about 4 or 5 months, 6 months, from Montreal. Montreal is very creative, very connected, and I grew up in Montreal, so I'm a Montrealer. I have an arts degree, and after being here for about 5 or 6 months, I had this disquiet, right? I was working, but I was just like, and my whole thing was, this place is so literal and it's so functional and it's so pragmatic. And as a creative person, I was like, I need an outlet. And so I created this, so my project was looking at self-portraits, right? So for 350 weeks, I did conceptually different self-portraits. I wasn't looking for pretty pictures. I was just trying to push myself or give myself a 6.5-year project of just doing these photos. And in a way, those were a performance. Okay, so for your Guaylo project, if you were to explain it to somebody as being a performance, so I'm projecting onto you, how would you talk about this as being a performance? Maybe you wouldn't.
The way that I take photos is kind of like a performance anyway. When I'm on the streets, I try not to be noticed. I'm a big guy, and I try to kind of, if I can drift in and drift out without ever knowing that I was there, then I've kind of succeeded. So in doing that, I'm moving, and there's a lot of kind of performative elements to what I do. And then of course the actual taking of pictures is a performance in itself. And so work-wise, I do a lot of commercial things, and in that you have to get the best out of somebody in 30 seconds,
right?
And whatever. So the skills you learn are very clown-like, or
clown-like. Okay.
Well,
there you go.
Yeah, because for me it's all about, it's not me that has the power; it's the person you're taking a picture of. And again, that's what people don't. So many people kind of go, "But I'm the photographer, I'm the big guy."
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like you give yourself, you give them the power, and so being a bit childlike or whatever shifts that power. They don't feel threatened by it. So everything I do is a kind of a dance in a way.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the next photo, but you have a website?
I do have a website. It's my name, alexmacro.com.
Best name ever for a photographer? Are you kidding? Dude, okay, Alex.
It's real as well.
I love it. Next photo. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.